Imagine this for a second. You purchase a vast stretch of land, a breathtaking 100-acre sanctuary where you plan to retire someday. You grind your entire life to make that dream real. Then one afternoon, you find out a homeowners association hasn't just stepped over your boundary line. They've constructed 12 enormous commercial buildings right on your property. Sounds unreal, doesn't it? Unfortunately, it happened to me, and what I chose to do next blindsided every single one of them. My story begins about 3 decades ago. I was in my late 20s, working a stable but far from glamorous job. What truly excited me, though, was investing. I saved obsessively, studying stocks, real estate, and any opportunity that could inch me closer to financial independence. My dream was simple. Own a large piece of rural land, build a modest self-sufficient home, and retire without stress or noise. After years of disciplined saving and calculated investments, I finally reached that milestone. I found it, the perfect property. A sprawling 100-acre untouched parcel with rolling hills, a gentle stream, and thick woodland. Completely raw, completely peaceful. I paid cash. The deed was entirely in my name. The boundaries were professionally surveyed and clearly marked. I posted no trespassing signs along the edges. But honestly, the location was so remote that I never anticipated issues. For the next 20 years, I rarely visited. I was still working, still stacking money for the house I'd someday build. Once a year, I'd drive out, walk the land, and picture my future. It was my escape, my promise to myself. The land was properly recorded with the county. Property taxes were paid on time, every single year. Everything was legal, documented, airtight. Fast forward about 5 years ago. I was finally ready to start designing my retirement home. I drove toward the property filled with excitement. But as I approached, something felt wrong. The horizon looked different. Where there should have been trees, I saw rooftops, large rooftops. My stomach sank. I pulled over and walked toward the boundary, dread building with each step. And there it was, a freshly paved road slicing straight across my land. Beyond it stood 12 large, matching commercial buildings, office-style structures, retail spaces. A massive sign at the entrance read, Oakwood Estates Commercial Park, complete with an HOA logo I had never seen before. My untouched 100 acres had been invaded. This wasn't accidental trespassing. They had fully developed a substantial section. I followed what appeared to be their newly invented boundary line. Estimating quickly, they had absorbed at least 20 acres of my property. Shock gave way to rage. How does something like this even happen? I drove straight to the county records office. I retrieved my deed, the original survey, every tax receipt. Everything was flawless. My ownership was undeniable. Then I researched Oakwood Estates. It was a newly built upscale residential development bordering my land. Apparently, their HOA decided they needed a commercial center for residents, and instead of purchasing land, they simply built on mine. My first impulse was to storm into their office and explode. But as the anger settled, something smarter took shape, a much better plan. They had already poured millions into those 12 buildings. Foundations set, walls finished, roof sealed, nearly complete. If I halted construction immediately, it would become a tangled legal fight. But if I let them finish. So I stayed silent. I went home and waited 2 more years. It was agonizing. I watched from a distance as they completed construction, landscaped beautifully, and began advertising units for lease. Their confidence was astounding. Not once did they verify ownership of the 20 acres they were occupying. The day construction was fully complete, I hired the best real estate attorney I could find. Not just any lawyer, I wanted someone ruthless. I walked into his office with my deed, survey maps, photographs, and tax documentation. I explained everything. As I spoke, his eyes widened. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "They did what?" He told me this was every property lawyer's fantasy scenario. We didn't file a lawsuit. We didn't send a cease and desist to the HOA. Instead, we sent letters, not to the HOA's attorneys, but to every business that had signed a lease inside those 12 buildings. The letters were professional and direct. They introduced me as the lawful landowner beneath their buildings. They included a copy of my deed and the official survey. The message was simple. The HOA had no legal authority to lease property it didn't own. Therefore, their lease agreements were invalid. Each tenant had two options: sign a new lease directly with me at a significantly higher rate, or vacate within 30 days for trespassing. The aftermath was immediate. My attorney's phone exploded with calls. Chaos erupted. Business owners were furious at the HOA. The HOA board panicked. First came threats, then denial, then desperate bargaining. They claimed it was a surveying error, but our original survey markers were still physically present. They attempted to purchase the 20 acres from me. I declined. They even floated adverse possession, but that argument collapsed instantly. I had paid taxes consistently, and their occupation was nowhere near long enough. They had no case. An emergency HOA meeting followed. Residents were outraged. They screamed at board members for reckless incompetence and exposing the community to massive financial liability. Tenants threatened fraud lawsuits. Eventually, reality set in. Every single business signed new lease agreements. With me, the revenue from those 12 commercial buildings now funds my retirement. It exceeds anything I had originally planned. I can build my dream home on the remaining 80 acres and enjoy a steady stream of passive income for life, courtesy of the HOA's arrogance. They assumed they could take what wasn't theirs. They believed money and influence meant rules didn't apply. But they overlooked one simple, critical document: the deed. I let them construct a multi-million-dollar monument to their own negligence on my land. And now they pay me. Sometimes patience isn't just a virtue. It's the most satisfying form of revenge. Thanks for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one.